All right, we are moving on to the next piece. We are now looking at 1.3.c. And what this is a bunch of statistical functions. And we're going to look at things like averages, mode, median, minimums, maximums, a lot of different things. So let's dive in with probably the easiest one that we'll be working with, which is the average. We're finding the average of something. I have a bunch of grades here. All right, 77, 89, 54, 100, 95, 76, and a 0. The 0 is a missed assignment, which we're going to use in this next piece. But for now, what I want to look at is just to find the average of all of these grades. Let's say we have little Timmy in class who got all these grades and wants to see what his average is. So in this empty box, I'm going to put equals average parentheses, and then we just choose the range of cells that we want to be included. Close our parentheses and press enter. Boom. 70.14285 blah 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 blah. Bunch of decimals after it. But we were able to find the average of this. And how can we tell? Well, let's say we take this assignment and turn it into a 99. It adjusts our average on here. All right. So that is what we have for finding the average of each of these grades or these numbers. Remember, Spreadsheets doesn't know that we're talking about grades. Spreadsheets just says, you want me to find the average of these numbers? I can do that for you. And it's how we use those tools and those capabilities to find meaningful things is what really matters. All right, let's move over to this one. This one is called average if. And average if is a way to put in a specific criteria or a specific set of rules to say, find the average of only the things that I care about. So in here, I'm going to put in equals average if parentheses. So it says we need to choose the range, so we're going to choose all of these. But then before we close the parentheses, we're going to put a comma, and we're going to put a rule in quotations. I'm going to put in quote greater than 0, end my quote, and close the parentheses now. So now what I'm saying is I want you to find the average of these grades as long as the grade is greater than 0. And so when we run this, we press enter, what we're going to get is a slightly higher grade. Why? Because that 0 was not factored in because of our rule. We're saying it must be greater than 0. And the 0 here is not greater than 0. So this is a cool way to find out the average of all of little Timmy's grades, not factoring in an assignment that might have been missed or anything else like that. So it's kind of a neat way where we can set up the rules for finding averages as well. All right, so that's the first piece, just looking at the average and the average if. It's a pretty cool way to, just kind of make up our rules as we go along in the average if, and average is just a super useful tool. So next we're going to be looking at, we're going to scroll down a little bit, and we're going to be looking at the mean, median, and mode. And you may notice that when I see mean, we're just going to use the average. Those words are pretty much the same thing, so we don't really even need to focus on those. What we do want to focus on, though, is these, the median and the mode. And we're going to go over each of those definitions, too, because it's probably been a while since we have seen those types of terms used in class or in college or anywhere else that we're learning about this kind of stuff. So a little refresher might be nice. All right, so looking at the median and the mode, because remember, the mean is basically just the average, so we're good on that. The median is kind of like a different kind of average. And it's used in different types of areas to remove things like outliers or other types of things that might change or skew the results. And I'm going to show you an example here. So we have median, right? I'm going to first try to find the average price of a meal here. And you're already probably seeing what the issue is going to be. So average is going to be equals average parentheses, and then I draw the box around these and close it. The average meal is $10.37. I'm looking at all these. These are normal, like, one-person meals. Looks like we have some family meals included that are changing the average. So instead, let's try to find the median. This is the number that when you sort everything, you make it from like the cheapest all the way up to the most expensive, it finds the item that sits perfectly in the middle. So instead of these being the prices, it would start with 4, then we would have 5, then 6, then 6, then 7, then 7, then 20, then 28. See how these are now sorted as opposed to like what they're actually representing? So what the median is going to do on this list is it's going to find the middlemost number or numbers, in this case it's 2 of them, and give us the number that best represents the like dead center middle of the meal. All right. So let's see what happens when we find it. It's equals median parentheses. We're going to choose the range of these prices. And we get 6.5, which is right between the 6 and the 7. So it tells us on here that when sorted, the middlemost number is 6.5. Now that's a little bit closer to seeing what the average meal is going to cost. Medians are used in a lot of different things. For right now, we just want to know that we can do it. That's the goal right now, just to learn how to use these equations. If you want more information on medians, you can always, take a peek on good old Google and look it up and see what it says and why they're used and why people like to use them. Because remember, this course, a lot of it is us just trying to figure out how to use spreadsheets to accomplish goals. All right, the next one that we have on here is the mode. All right, the mode is the most common occurring thing within our group of data. So in here, just looking at it, you can say like, oh, that's probably 16. So let's say these are like my student ages, the ages of all my students in my class. And I'm wondering, what's the most common age for my students? Because if it's 16 or 17, maybe I want to start teaching them, about car ownership or, when you start to drive or things like that. If most of my students were 14 or like 19 or 20 or 18 even, teaching them about getting their first car, it's going to be valuable, of course, but especially for the younger ages, that's not going to be as relevant or as important to them. So the mode will tell us the most commonly occurring item in this group. It's kind of like the idea of us being able to count something and then finding the largest count. So let's give it a try. Equals mode parentheses, and then we choose our data set, and then we close our parentheses and press enter. And 16, that is the most common age. Now if I go in and change these all to 14, all of a sudden you saw that switch where 14 was the most common answer. And as I undo them, you'll see it eventually changes back to the 16 that we originally had. All right. So again, median is the middlemost number or average between the two numbers when we sort them from smallest to largest. And the mode is the most frequently occurring item in there. All right. After this, we're going to move on to finding the min and the max. And these are ways for us to find items that are on the high end or the low end of our data, just in case something might have been wrong or something might have been incorrectly typed in. All right, so on this example, we have mins and maxes. So I'm just going to choose a data set, and let's just put it here. So let's just put a bunch of different numbers. And I'm literally just like punching the keyboard right now. All right, oop, little too many, a few too many. All right, and let's get rid of that one just so it looks nice on the screen, okay? So we have this crazy amount of data, and you could probably figure out what the min and the max, or the smallest and the largest ones are in this data set. But what we're gonna do is, we're just gonna play around with it and see and have it choose and find that information for us. And it's pretty easy to do. We say equals min, parentheses, we choose our row of data, and we close it. Boom. 3 was the smallest number on this group. All right, let's try the max. So equals max, parentheses. Choose our range, close the parentheses, press enter, and that gives us the largest number. And if I go in and just change this to like a different number and press enter, the max adjusts as well because it has to change what it is calculating on here. Same thing for this. If I change this to 25, Google Sheets is going to quickly sort through that row of data and say, okay, what's the smallest one? And when I press enter, now it's searched through this and found 4. Now again, we are in a situation where, we are playing around with smaller amounts of numbers. You can read through this and tell me what the smallest and largest numbers are. But what if I had data that was 15,000 rows of information? We might be having some difficulty trying to find the smallest and largest number. I don't want to read through 15,000 rows, and I don't think you want to either. So again, that's just another way that we can use statistics information to find out more things. All right. The last thing that we want to do is the rounding function, and we'll get to that in just 1 second. When we round, remember that changes like a decimal. So for example, if these prices, this is a price of something, let's say $7.4928273. My goodness, I don't know how to pay that type of money. All I know is how to get the first 2 decimal places, right? $7.49. So when we want to round something, we can actually do the rounding to make it appear more like reasonable or looking nice. And that's normal round. Round up always takes the optimistic or the higher number and pushes it up to that level. And round down does the opposite, where it always grabs the lowest possible number of it. So let's try some of these. Equals, round, parentheses. We want to say this value, and then if we just close it off, we can even see right here that it's going to say to go to 7. All right. If I try it again, equals, round, parentheses, we can put in that value again, but then comma, I can decide how many decimal places I would like this to be rounded. So I could say round it 1 decimal place. All right, that rounded it to 7.5 because it's 1 decimal place here. Can we go further? Of course we can. Round this data value, comma, let's go 4 decimal places. All right, now I get 7.4928, and remember, remember when it's below 5 on the decimal value, you round down, so you get rid of it. So it's 7.123 4 decimal places, and then we have to look at this 2 right here to see if it tells that number to go up or down, and it rounds it to 7.4928. We can also do it again. All right, we can go at as many decimal places as we want. What do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's go 6 decimal places out. All right, and we get kind of the same idea where it rounds 6 decimal places, and that last 3 sitting at the end does not appear. We also have round this value, comma. What if I wanted to go 12 decimal places and close it? What's going to happen is it's going to include the entire number at the bottom on that round, because it says you wanted 12 decimal places, but I only saw 7 of them, so we're going to stop there. All right, let's take a look at round up. We're going to do the same idea, round up, parentheses, this value, and close it. Round up moved it up to 8, because remember, it always takes the number and then goes 1 higher. And what we can do, round up, parentheses, this value, we can go a certain number of decimal places as well. So we can do this. All right, we get 7.493 when we went 3 decimal places. Okay. What if we wanted to go 2 decimal places, like on here, where it gave us 7.5, right? Let's see what happens. 7.49, so we're going to equals, round up, parentheses, this value, comma, 2 decimal places. It also gave us 7.5. So we can specify just how many decimal places we care about on here. All right. And round down is going to give us a super similar idea, but just kind of like the opposite of it. Round down of this, that brings us down to 7. Okay, equals round down of this. Let's put it 2 decimal places. And that's interesting. That brought us down to 7.49. All right, equals round down this value again. How about 3 decimal places? Let's try that. All right, 7.492. Now, normally, if we were to do a normal round, it would be 492, and then it would look at that 2 and say, is that being rounded up or down based on the 8? Normally, it would round it up, but because we specified round down, it always lowers the value to what we need. All right, so that is pretty much what we are looking at for just 1.3.c and the statistics. It's nice to have these tools Rounding down, rounding up, everything like that is really helpful if you're dealing with like a price catalog or just a list of a lot of products for sale. And sometimes those prices get represented in weird ways, or you have weird discounts that you need to toss in. Like if a company offers, 10% discount, and it puts you into some weird situations like this example, 7.492. What do you do with that extra 2 1,000ths of a decimal place? Do you round it up? Do you round it down? Well, now we have the tools, so when we do make that decision, we know exactly how to work with it. All right. Similar idea with min and max. We can kind of grab the upper and lower values. This is a really nice way for us to find any types of errors. Because, for example, if we have grades and you want to find the highest and lowest grade in a class, you could do that. You could also, prevent any sort of mistakes. For example, if somebody got an 82 and I go 8 and then 2, but I accidentally type the 3 at the same time, if I give a student an 823, that's going to give them like solid 100s for the rest of the course, and it won't be an accurate grade, especially when I meant to make it just an 82. So by looking for the min and max of the grades, I can always see the highest grade and the lowest grade to make sure that I'm giving a proper set of accurate grades to my students. All right. Remember we talked about the median and mode, median being the item in the middle when you sort them from smallest to largest. If it's two of them, we just find the average of those two. And the mode is the most frequently occurring item in the group of data. And then, of course, we had the average and the average if. So that pretty much wraps it up for statistics. On our next activity, we're going to be looking at how we can manipulate text. A lot of this has been about manipulating numbers and rounding and averaging and things like that. But we can also do this with different pieces of text as well. We can trim letters off on one end. We can gather the first 3 letters from the left or the right. We can fuse text together. We can do a lot of cool stuff with that. So that's our next thing that we're going to tackle.